Pasha. Why it's good to come and learn in the Yeshiva. Vayishma Yisro heard. What did he hear? It says he heard everything that Hashem did, that he took Am Yisrael out of Mitzrayim, what he did to Moshe and Am Yisrael, he took them out of Mitzrayim. And Rashi says, brings from Chazal, Ma Shmua Shama Ubo. What news, or what is the hearing that he heard, that he came? And Nafshi says, bringing from Gemara, from Chilta, he heard Kriyas Yamsuf, the splitting of the sea, and the battle of Amalek. And there's an obvious question over here, because the pasuk says what he heard, and Rashi says totally different things. Yishma Yisra, he heard everything Hashem, everything he heard, and as well, especially they took them out of Mitzrayim. Rashi says that's the greatest thing. So suddenly Rashi doesn't even mention what the pasuk says and says other things. He heard Kriyas Yamsuf, the splitting of the sea, and the battle of Amalek. It's not even written in the pasuk. So what's written in the pasuk he ignores. They ignore. And what's not written in the pasuk, that's what he heard. So how do we fit this together? Obviously, it's a problem. The answer is we have to be medayik the words of Rashi. It doesn't say Ma Shmua Shama. What did he hear? Ma Shmua Shama Ubo. Which shmua did he hear, which made him come to leave his house, his fame, his place where he was born, where he lived his whole life, and come out to the desert to Am Yisrael? What made him get on a plane and leave everything and go someplace else? Ma shmua shama uba. What made him move? What motivated him to move? It's a totally different question. Which one of these things? And then Rashi says, the other things which are not mentioned in the pasuk, Kriyas Yamsuf and the battle of Amalek. Why specifically these two things? So there's from the Kotzker Rebbe, that's I heard it's the name of Kotzker, I know it for years, but somebody told me it's Kotzker, so we'll say the name of the Kotzker. I think it's Emes. There were three, one could say like this, there were three hearings about Mitzrayim at the end of the day. What are the three? Two hearings diametrically opposed, and one hearing neutral. Let's see. In the Shir, in the song of Az Yashir, Shamu Amim Yirgozum, Chil Achaz Yoshvei Plashas. The nations heard about the splitting of the sea. Well, by the way, they didn't have to hear about it. It was, everybody saw it, because the Chazal bring down that if a person had a glass of water, so the glass of water as well split in half. In other words, the Maral explains this. Hashem changed the nature of water. The one who created water and gave water the nature that water seeks its level, he changed it, that water now has a body and it splits. Hashem could make any law of nature. He made one law, he made another. And that's why it says that Vayoshev Hayom le'esonai. So Chazal darshan, Chazal interpret the word esonai that it's if you shift the letters differently, litnoai, to its condition. Which condition? The conditions of Ma'aseh Bereishis. It went back, and so it says that Kriyas Yamsuf was a condition of Ma'aseh Bereishis. What do you mean, condition of Ma'aseh Bereishis? What's the difference to every miracle? Because here it wasn't a local miracle; it was an international miracle. He changed the law of nature, so it has to do with Ma'aseh Bereishis. He changed the nature of water, not here. He made water have a different property for the moment, for that time. And that's why it happened all over. The Yesod, the foundation of the Yesod of water, got a different nature to split. So everybody saw Kriyas Yamsuf. It was in the whole world. Suddenly water split. There was wherever it was. And so the nations heard specifically what this resulted with the Mitzrayim, and they created an enormous fear. Shamu Amim Yigozim Chil, they trembled. But not all the nations. Vayovoi Amalek Vayilochem B'Refidim. Amalek came to battle. So Rashi, and it says there, one should remember Shekorcha B'Derech. So Rashi says, to what was Am Yisrael compared to a burning spring, a spring of hot water, and everybody's afraid to enter it. Came somebody without seriousness, without responsibility, even to himself. So what are you afraid of? And he jumped into the spring. Now he was an idiot. Proved he got burnt. But people were less afraid of the spring anymore. You can live, you don't die. He opened up the spring. You can go in and still come out alive. Even though he got burnt, but he took off the fear. And that's so Amalek, all the nations of the world were afraid of Am Yisrael. One can say, who gave birth to anti-Semitism in the whole world? Who was Mailid, brought about the possibility of anti-Semitism to hurt Jews? Amalek. Reishis Goyim Amalek. So they heard as well. And instead of reacting with fear, they rebelled. The opposite. Not only did they so let's say like this, the nations of the world heard, good, they heard, they trembled, but they didn't change in any way. They remained the nations of the world. They didn't come to fight Am Yisrael, they didn't come to join Am Yisrael. They stood neutral. Neutrality. Didn't change anything in their life. They heard. Amalek rebelled. How did they say, Hippi Yamach Shemai? He said, the Jews are the conscience of the world. They're the conscience. You can't live freely because you have a conscience, like doing something wrong. We'll get rid of the Jews, then we can enjoy, we can have full enjoyment of this world. The Jews, they're the conscience of the world. That's how wrote Hitler, Yamach Shemai. It's Amalek. So they came to rebel against the Jews. So Yisrael, when originally Yisrael heard about Kriyas Yamsuf, he was also part of the nations. And he was part of those people that it's written on in Shamul, Amin Yagozim. He heard that he also trembled. But that was it. But then he heard that in the Koyach HaTumah, the Shmiya motivated, you can hear and even rebel against the Shmiya ad kadei kach to come and fight it. As he said, if the Tumah can be so strong, the Shmooz, that the Amalek came because of the Shmooz and fought it, then one has to counteract Amalek the other way around, the 180 degrees. And one has to, it's not enough just to hear. One has to come and join them, to come and bow. The Shmooz has to motivate you, has to change something in you. Ma Shmooz Shama Ubo. What made him come? He heard about the paradox of Kriyas Yamsuf. It's not two things. He heard that there can be a Kriyas Yamsuf, and in spite of that, there can be a battle of Amalek, that a person can become so adish, so apathetic, that he doesn't react, that he can ignore Musa, to the point to rebel against it. So he understood it's not enough to learn Musa. When you have to internalize it and make a move and make an act. What motivated Yisrael to move? Shama Uba, because he heard that there can be after Kriyas Yamsuf of Mechilas and Chemes Amalek. That's what Rashi says. And the dogish, the emphasis is on the book. What made him come? Because he saw that. So that's the three shmiyos we have. We have three shmiyot of Kriyas Yamsuf. One of Amalek that rebelled against the shmiyah and came to fight it. One of the Amin that just heard and trembled, that's it, didn't change them anything. And Yisrael went to be metaken, the correct Amalek. I'll speak about this in a minute. As Yisrael redeemed the nations of the world, he's the first ger, the first convert to Klal Yisrael. And he was metaken, the Amalek, he's the opposite of Amalek. Amalek, when the emes, the truth was revealed of Hashem's presence in the world through Am Yisrael, that he chose Am Yisrael as the nations of the world, stayed the same. But the tachlis of Klal Yisrael is to bring the truth to the nations of the world. Amalek rebelled against the truth. Yisrael came and joined the truth. He was metaken Amalek. And all over in the Torah you'll find, for example, just like here, you have the coming of Yisrael next to the battle of Amalek, when Shaul HaMelech is commanded to battle with Amalek. So at the first it says that he sent a message to Canaan. Caini is the children of Yisrael. And he sent a message to them that they should leave the place he's going to battle Amalek. You find the mention of the children of Yisrael next to battle of Amalek, because it's Zeh, what's called in Hebrew, Zeh l'umat Zeh, one against the other. Yisrael is redeeming the kitrug on the nations of the world, that they didn't accept the truth. They weren't Megaya. He came and he was Megaya. He's a marshal. Yisrael is a marshal. Whatever's going to be in the future, you have in Olam Hazeh a Shirish in the beginning. Yisrael is what's going to be, like we say in Rashi. Rashi brings down, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. What's Hashem Echad? Today, Ato He's Elokeinu. Leave it. Lots of love, Oz efeich kol ha'amim sof ha'brure likroi b'shem Hashem echad. All the nations will come and they'll all recognize the truth. The beginning of that Oz efeich, because the tachlis is that all the ummah should recognize through Am Yisrael that Hashem is echad. The beginning, the shirish of this, in the beginning, the root of this, the root of this. The root of this is Yisrael. He's the Asad Lavai of what's going to be of all the Umas Ha'olam. That's Yisrael. Let's leave this subject for a minute. I'll come back to it in 2 minutes. But I want to show you something interesting. Chazal say, this is a new subject. You'll see the connection, but it's a new subject. Shloisha, who was Yisrael? Shloisha Hayu Ba'oto Eitzah. When Paro decided to what to do with the Jews, what's the final solution for the Jews in Egypt? So there are 3 people: Yitro, Bilam, and Job. Iyuv. Okay. And Bilam, he gave the Eitzah. He was killed. Iyuv didn't say anything. Shatak. Didn't say no, didn't say yes. He wasn't for it, but he didn't protest. And Yitro Barach ran away. It's interesting. First of all, Reb Chaim Shmulevitz, in parentheses, Reb Chaim Shmulevitz says something fascinating. He says it would seem that the punishment of Iyuv was a bigger punishment than Bilam, because Bilam was killed. So all right, killed. He lived a short life and he killed and finished. Iyuv had tremendous suffering. So it would seem that the punishment of Iyuv was less of a rasha. He was quiet. That Hashem punished him more severely. So he says that this proves the value of life. That the pleasure of life is such that even with suffering and everything, that it's kedai to live. It's kedai to live. The tanug of life is more than all the suffering of Yisrael. Yisrael, because otherwise it came out that Iyuv had a greater punishment. That living is a tanug more than suffering. The person wants to live. If he doesn't want to live, it's something went cuckoo. Naturally, if his relationship to life is correct, any suffering will not counteract the pleasure of being alive and the opportunity of being alive itself. That living every minute of life is an opportunity to be in front of Hashem. Anyway, let's get back. So, if you notice, it's very interesting. From each one of these people came out Torah. Torah. Iyuv, we have a whole book about the suffering of Iyuv. Sefer Iyuv. Bilam, we have the whole Pasha of Nebuas Bilam. Balak. And Yisrael. Why is Yisrael called Yisrael? Yeter? Because he added a Pasha to the Torah. That means all of these had to, because this was the Shibur of Mitzrayim. This wasn't Tsama, what to do with the Jews. Am Yisrael had to be prepared for Torah. From each one came out Torah, but came out Torah in a different way. Iyuv came out, Moshe wrote the book of Iyuv about the suffering of Iyuv. From Bilam came out a parsha as well, but he was forced to say it. And Yisrael, from his own Bechira, got a chelik in Torah. But Torah had to come out. That's from one point. But now from another point. We're speaking, now I get back to where we began. We were speaking about that Yisroi and Amalek are two opposites. And Yisroi is really the tikkun of Amalek. As you can say in a certain sense that every Ger Tzedek is really the opposite of Amalek. It's a tikkun of Amalek. So, Yisroi, Amalek also created Torah. After we have Nochemes Amalek, we have Moshe Rabbeinu is nitztaveh, he's commanded, Kisoi, Zois, Zikoren Baseifer, Besim Ba'ozni Yeshua, Kimochi Em Chazecha Amalek Mitachas HaShamayim. Zois, Zikoren Baseifer. We have, every time Amalek comes in Klal Yisrael, the erasing of Amalek creates Torah. How do we see it? The first time, it says Zois, Zikoren Baseifer. The second time we have Milchemes Amalek with Shaul HaMelech. And then, which other sefer do we have? And it's called the sefer connected with the erasing of Amalek.
Purim.
Purim. Memayme Esther Kiyam Zlibi HaPurim Ha'elu V'nichta Bas-Sefer. Soyu Zoysi Kohen Bas-Sefer. After this Mechias Amalek, there's a sefer of Torah. A sefer of Torah. But the difference is, the Sefer is about this. The Sefer of Torah is about the destruction of Amalek. They don't have any schus in that Torah. But Yisroi is who's the opposite. Yisroi, who's exactly the opposite of Amalek. Yisroi comes and Hashem is Me'ah Eino. He comes to be Megai and Hashem gives him because it's totally l'shem Shemayim. Hashem opens up his eyes to give something to Klal Yisrael, to Moshe Rabbeinu. He gave an eitz. It's unbelievable. Yisroi comes and Hashem gives him an eitz, a das, to add something to the Torah. Because the tzura, because the ger is a tosefet to Klal Yisrael, and if it's a shem shemayim, so Hashem, he brings with him a tosefet to Torah. This is the chiddush, the hagdoma. Now another point. Why is it that the whole parsha dealing with the acceptance of Torah is called on the name of Yisroi? This is fascinating. It's called on Yisroi, and which is again the whole parsha of accepting the Torah. What's the pshat? Because all the halachas of Geirus we learn from Kabbalah Satayah. Because all Am Yisrael, because this is the definition. I think I said it before. I feel shackles. I have to tell it to you because to say the opposite, to understand the mistake that there are Jews which are far from Torah, they make the mistake. I was in Holland, who could appreciate it. I'm fiercely this story, and I went to a guy who was dealing with Israeli banks, and I looked at him. I look at the house. I'm looking for sign of something Jewish. The Israeli banks. I can't find anything Jewish there. So I say to him, tell me, are you Jewish? He says, 100% halachic Jews. So halachic Jews. I don't see a mezuzah on the door. Oh no, that's after the war. We don't want to identify on the door to have a mezuzah that people should know we're Jews. So I say to him, tell me, kosher you eat? No, we don't eat kosher. So tell me, what did you mean that you're a 100% halachic Jew? What way are you a halachic Jew? We have no non-Jewish blood in the family. No intermarriage. That's halachic Jew. You know what that is? That's not a halachic Jew. That's a racist Jew. That's a racist. And that's not the meaning when we say Am HaNivchem, we say Am Yisrael. The nation of Am Yisrael is not a nation of Jewish blood. We didn't become Am Yisrael because of Jewish blood. It's true. We have the schus of Abbas, of Avram Yitzchak Yankov. We became a nation through being mekabel the Torah. That's why the main thing in Geirus is as well, the Kabbalah's mitzvahs. When Am Yisrael was mekabel the Torah at Har Sinai, we became Am Yisrael. Because we are a nation not because of the blood, we're a nation because of our amunah. This is what reminds Rav Sadia Goyim said that Umezu, the nation of Am Yisrael, Ein Uma Ela B'Teirasa. It's a nation in its Torah. Am Yisrael is a nation. What is ma'ached? What unites Am Yisrael is the emunah, is the Torah. That's what unites Am Yisrael. It's emunah and it's mitzvahs, not the blood. And I always say over that you can have somebody who in blood is 75. I met such a person in Holland as well. He came to the Koil to learn once. We taught him Shad Mitzvahs B'nai Noach. He was 75% Jewish blood, but just on the wrong side. His father and grandfather and Ben Jews, but they all married Goyim. They married half Jews, but the half Jews was also on the wrong side. And it's like this: you have a guy his father is totally Jewish. He marries a woman whose her father is also Jewish, but her mother's not Jewish, so she's a guy. She's not Jewish, and the child now has 75% Jewish blood, but he's a guy. Then you can have the opposite. You can have a child where it's the opposite, where it happens to be on the other side. The mother is, what do you call it? The mother is only half Jewish, but it's on the right side. Her mother's Jewish. And the other guy as well, the guy who's only half Jew, but his mother's Jewish, and they marry each other, and they have a child, and it goes weit and weit. And anyway, you can get up to 75%, even more, non-Jewish blood. Allah is Jewish. So it proves that it's not a race. It's not dependent on the blood. It's dependent on the emunah. It's halacha. It's halacha of Torah. Now, the proof that we connect Matan Torah, we don't only have it once in the parsha, that we connect Matan Torah with Geirus. Which Megillah do we read on the Chag of Shavuot, which is the Chag of Kabbalah Satayra? Ruth. What's it about? About a Geirus. It's about David, but it's about a Geirus. So here we have, specifically, we're connecting Giur with Kabbalah Satayra. Just like the parsha of the parsha of Yisro is the parsha of Kabbalah Satayra, it's repeated a second time in our minhag to read Megillas Ruth on Shavuot. So it can't be a coincidence. This proves, and that's all the halachas in the Rambam, all the halachas of Geirus, we learn from how Klal Yisrael did at the time of Kabbalah Satayra. That they had Mila, and they had Tefillah, and they had Kabbalah Sol Mitzvahs. And when the Zman Beis HaMikdash, there was also a korban to bring, a korban ashram. Now, the first word of the I wanted to say one more thing connected with this Mashmu Shama Ubo. So we learned that Yisro merited everything because he was Bo, and Amalek is the opposite. Both of them created Torah, but in the opposite way. Amalek, who was Bo, created Torah. Yisro, who was Bo, also created Torah. Here's I wanted to get to the mile of coming to a yeshiva. What happened to the other Adam? They didn't create any Torah. Not positive, not negative. The Shamu Ami Megazim, it evaporated, finished. Amalek at least created Torah, maybe the wrong way, but they were Ba. If you move, you do something in this world. If you just stay neutral at home, I once heard somebody said, if you stay home, the only thing that happens is that the refrigerator gets open. And that's the difference of coming to yeshiva to learn, or even deciding to learn at home. If you come to a base medrash. Ma Shmua, that's why I wanted to we want to speak about the mile of the coming to how much you should value to come to yeshiva to learn. Ma Shmua Shama'u Bo. If Yisro wouldn't have been Bo, wouldn't have picked himself up, nothing would have happened to Yisro. On the other hand, I once put into a pasuk, we have a parsha called Ekev. The parsha begins, the parsha Ekev is, what's Ekev? The Ekev has many meanings, but one of the meaning of Ekev is the foot, the ankle, the bottom of the foot. V'hoya Ekev Tishmon. If you pick up your Ekev, your foot, and you go someplace, then you Tishmon, you can be Makabel Torah, learn Torah. If you stay at home and don't go to a shir or anything, you stay the same. You live in your own dream. Only if you pick yourself up and go to here, then you hear. And here I got to the other point. It's interesting that the first word of the parasha dealing with Kabbalah Satayra is Vayishma, the power of Shmiya. Sometimes it's very difficult, kol hakavod to you people here, and I'm saying it to the wrong people, because the very fact that you listen to a shmooz every time, that's shmir. But some people, they only think that they can listen to us to themselves. There are some people, you notice in the shul, that there are people, many people, at the time, we have a mitzvah, for example, which is all shmir. Chazarat Schatz. To go over the Shemona Esrei. You'll see that many people, they're gewaldige, very big masmidim. They don't want to be mevatel from Torah. After when the Schatz is learning, going over the Shemona Esrei, they can't miss a minute from learning. Suddenly they're opening up this book and that book. And then as soon as the Schatz is over, you don't see them, and the rest of the day you don't see that they're running to look for books, not to miss a minute. So what's going on? It's a bit of a kasha. Why do they become such big masmidim specifically at the time of Chazaras HaShatz? You know what the pshat is? Because they can't listen to somebody else. Chazaras HaShatz, you just got to do nothing and listen. It's hard to listen. They're not trained in listening. The Chachamim said that he wanted us to hear the Shemona Esrei said from somebody else. That's the mitzvah. Lishmoa the Chazan. And also, if you're busy learning, most of the time, you'll miss the bracha at the end. You won't, or you'll answer amen. The amen might be an amen yesayma, which is a chetz. Even if you answer amen, either you don't hear the bracha b'klal, so you're not answering amen. You're supposed to answer amen, and or you answer amen and you don't even know what you're answering to, which is even a bigger chetz. Person answers amen on a bracha and he doesn't know which bracha he's answering amen. It's not amen. When you say amen, you have to think what the shliach tzibur said, what the message of this bracha is, and be mechaven. Either I believe this, it's true, or in places where it's applicable, halavai ken yehi ratzon, that this should be mitkayem, that this bracha should be mitkayem. If it's Bochat Hashem mechayim meisim, maybe you don't have to say halavai it should be, it will be anyway, sometime of Hashem. But at least I need namnimbik t'chias meisim. But if on the other hand, if it's mevorech hashanim, amen ken yehi ratzon, that Hashem should send His blessing. For the years. There's two kavanas in Amen. Emes, Kain Hu, Emes Hu, and the second Amen is Halavai, Kain Yeh. And if you don't know what the bracha, what the shliach tzibur say, you can't know. Anyway, so Torah is connected. You can only learn Torah if you have the power of shmir. And listening. It means listening, not just hearing with the ear, to listen what is the message. When you learn as well in a sugya, you have to think, not to put your own ideas. Some people are so full of themselves that instead of they try to understand what the text says, so they have their own idea, and they'll prove to you that the text says what they think it says. The power of learning, when you're learning, you have to have koyach hashmir, to put away all your pre-ideas that you think. What is the text saying? What do the Chachamim say that this text means? If you don't have the power to try to hear what is the Chacham trying to tell me different than what I think, then you can't learn. And that's why it's not a coincidence that the whole parasha dealing with Kabbalas HaTorah begins with the word Vayishma. Vayishma Yisro. Yisro had the power to hear. The power to hear and to internalize that hearing and change. And that's the yesod. That's the foundation of Kabbalas HaTorah. All Kabbalas HaTorah is built on the power to internalize what one hears, to really hear. Just to hear with the ear is not hearing. You know that the Targum, in many places, is metargum. The word shmiya, he's not metargum. He doesn't translate it to hear. He translates it to be mekabel. To be mekabel means to accept. You're able to accept what one is hearing. To accept into oneself, to internalize. Is a hearing of just hearing. Doesn't mean that the ear hears. The nerve ends in the ear hear. It means to listen. To listen to your parents. It doesn't mean to listen to hear the words. It means to listen. It's the power of listening is to accept, to internalize. That's why Yishma Yisro. Yisro internalized the messages of Yetzias Mitzrayim, and so he became Yisro. On the other hand, there are sometimes little acts, and a person doesn't realize the value of those acts. There's another medrash. Where did Yisro begin? And if he would have missed this point, he would have never become Yisro. All of Yisro was Zoicha was because of a very small act.
Judging,
No. Before, where did he become Yisrael?
Moshe Rabbeinu came to him.
But how did he?
Oh, before then?
Even before that. You know what he did? When his daughters came home, so he said to his daughters, "What happened to you today?" He said there was this Egyptian man, and they usually had wait till all the other shepherds went away till they could get water to the sheep. How come you came earlier? There was this Egyptian man, and he saved us from the other shepherds.
Why didn't you invite him over?
Oh, says Yisrael.
Where is he at?
Where is he
at?
He was a Kiren Eloi, V'yochel Lechem. Why don't you invite him as a guest? Where would Yisrael be, and who would have heard of Yisrael if he didn't have the reaction of inviting the man that saved his daughters? Because of Achnasas Oirchim, because of giving the bread to guests, Yisrael was Zoicha to have children sitting in Mishkas HaGozes, children that came out of him, Sanhedrin, became part of Klal Yisrael, became part of the Torah, became the father of Moshe Rabbeinu. Where did it all begin? From inviting a stranger for a piece of bread.
He also achieved the Excalibur, the sword. In the Garden of Yitro, the dress says.
Then Moshe took out the sword.
Yeah. If you could do, you can marry one of my daughters.
That's something else. That's a marriage. But where did But the marriage says, where did Yisro begin? Because he have achnasas oirchen. That's the power of the mitzvah. So sometimes a person does a mitzvah that he looks like it, like a little mitzvah. And that's perhaps what Pshat is. It says, Avizoya b'mitzvah kala kechamura. Even a mitzvah looks to you like a small mitzvah. Yeah. Be careful like a big mitzvah. Why? Because you don't know. There is no such thing as a small mitzvah. From a small mitzvah, you don't know how many, since the mitzvah, Gereris mitzvah, you don't know how many mitzvahs this small mitzvah is going to bring you. And those mitzvahs will be, when they add up, they'll be chamuras shebechamuras. All of Yisro began from a mitzvah kala. Kir'ena le'ish v'yoichal lechem. Call the man and let him eat some bread. And that's why when you see sometimes a person doing some big mitzvah, they mezakeh him, they give him a schus from Shemayim to do a big mitzvah, but we don't know where it began. Sometimes the big mitzvahs, that's just a schar, because he did a little mitzvah, which he didn't even think about. The big mitzvahs, all the big mitzvahs which they give a schus from a person from Shemayim begin with little mitzvahs. And the little mitzvahs which a person doesn't look at, that has an enormous value. Dafke. And that's how he's zoyer b'mitzvah kala kechamura, because no mitzvah is a davar katan. Every mitzvah has a power, specifically maybe because the person doesn't give it such, usually one doesn't give it so value, that's its value. Because a little mitzvah person doesn't have ego, and he doesn't get carried away, so that's, in a certain sense, the more common the mitzvah is, the more possibility that the mitzvah is l'shem shemayim. And the more the mitzvah is really l'shem shemayim, that's the power of the mitzvah. The power of the mitzvah is not just the act itself, it's the purity of the act. That's where the power of the mitzvah is. The main part of the mitzvah is the purity of the person, the intention of the person. If a person does a mitzvah with no ego involved, that mitzvah has enormous power. And the more passionate the mitzvah is, the less ego. The more passionate. I don't think Yisro thought anything about it, that he's doing a great act. When he said naturally, he said, invite this man over for a piece of bread. He didn't know he's going to be Moshe Rabbeinu. He just invited a man, a stranger in the town, for a piece of bread. Ish Mitzri. Ish Mitzri. He had no idea. But this is, I'm not saying this for myself, this says in Medrash. The Medrash says this. The Olam that's Gedoyla Legima. How great is the schus of Legima, of giving, of Achnosas Orchim. We know that all Am Yisrael begins from Avraham Avinu. And Avraham Avinu was Achnosas Orchim. Godel Achnosas. Here we see it clearly. Godel Achnosas Orchim Yosim Kabbalas B'nei Ashchina. Yisrael approximately was Zoicha to Kabbalas B'nei Ashchina from his Achnosas Orchim. So we spoke a few messages. What did we speak about today? We spoke about the necessity of internalizing Musava, Shmooz, Shoma, Ubo. Shoma, Ubo. We spoke about the connection of Geirus with Kabbalah Satera. And the last thing we spoke about, that mitzvah gereris mitzvah, that no mitzvah is small enough. Every mitzvah, sometimes paradoxically, if it's smaller, there's no ego involved, so it has enormous power. And every mitzvah brings about other mitzvahs.
Yashkoach.